So, okay, I'm going to put the definition on the screen of the 354 in IPC. Now it starts with saying a man committing any of the following acts, then 1, 2, 3, 4 shall be guilty of the offense of sexual harassment. So the first one says physical contact and advances involving unwelcome and explicit sexual overtures. Does not say against whom. Second one, demand or request for sexual favors, again doesn't say from whom. Third, which says showing pornography. I forgot to put it on silent. That's what happens. Okay, now my phone is on silent. Yeah, so the third one uses the word showing pornography against the will of a woman. So we certainly know that this is limited to a woman being the receiver of the action. Then the fourth one, making sexually colored remarks. So how do we read this section? Do we read this section to say that only third is against a woman while the other three can be against anyone? Or do we say because in the third they have put woman there, therefore all the four have to be against or in relation to a woman? What do you think?
Mm.
We very clearly know that the offender in this case is man, but whether victim is limited to woman is the question. Any 2 points? Anyone speaking? I do not hear anyone. Okay, let's have a look at the POCSO. This is the definition in a POCSO. And POCSO definition is very categorically. Let's look at the legislation. POCSO. So here is section 11. A person is said to commit sexual harassment upon a child. So person certainly gender neutral, can be anyone. And very categorically, the subject of the action is the child. Child is a person below the age of 18. So either boys and girls. And when the such persons with sexual intent, and you can look at the categories, these are wider than what we have in the IPC. This one says, utters any word or makes any sound, makes any gesture, exhibits any object or part of body with the intention that such word or sound shall be heard, or such gesture, object, or part of the body shall be seen by the. Do you know this section is an offense under IPC under which section? Do you know? 509. Makes a child exhibit his body or any part of his body so as it is seen by such person or any other person. Shows any object to a child in any form or media for pornographic purposes. And look at second, the sexual intent is the word to be read with it. That with sexual intent makes the child exhibit his body. So child pornography. Shows any object to a child in any form or media for pornographic purposes. Repeatedly or constantly follows or watches or contacts a child, either directly or through electronic, digital, or any other means, or threatens to use in any form of media or real or fabricated depiction through electronic, film, or digital or any other mode of any part of the body of the child or the involvement of the child in a sexual act. And lastly, entices the child for pornographic purposes or gives gratification therefore. In this one, we do not find the reference to what we have seen in the other legislation as quid pro quo sexual harassment. Here it is all about the sexual actions or the actions with the sexual intent being done. It is slightly different, but in terms of comparison to as to who is the accused person, who is the offender, and who is the victim, this is much clearer. When you look at the definition under these two legislations, Sexual Harassment Act and the IPC, it's not very clear. At least I certainly believe that in case of IPC, it is not at all clear. Is it clearer in the Sexual Harassment Act? Yes. Anyone who has an access straight away to the Sexual Harassment Act?
Ma'am, it particularly says that the aggrieved person is a woman in the particular act.
So then we are in the Sexual Harassment Act. Sexual harassment is a very categorically a man to woman. Yes. But in case of, and you know, there's a guidelines of the UGC also on the subject matter. And here the guidelines are talking about aggrieved woman. The definition starts with the aggrieved woman to workplace, a woman of any age, whether employed or not, whether who alleges to have been subjected to any act of sexual harassment by the respondent. And what we do find that at subsequent stage, they're using the word student. So student can be a man or a woman. So it's still tilted in favor of towards the women being the victims and the harasser being the man. And that's a very major limitation. Earlier, sexual harassment policy, which was made by the university itself, before Vishakha, before the Sexual Harassment Act had come, it was very categorically gender neutral. And either the offender or the victim could have been a woman. But now, because of the legislation being sexist in that sense, that it is not gender neutral terminology there, so the UGC also has not used gender neutral terminology. Therefore, when we have ended up with this kind of a status where we are finding that the definition is very, very gendered. So when it is gendered, what are the, and certainly specifically saying that ordinarily because more women are subjected to sexual harassment than men are, we have made provisions. Now, in the IPC, is there any special provision which facilitates women addressing the problem or filing a complaint? If it is, what did we notice earlier? What is the nature of the, what is the IPC is cognizable and it is bailable and in non-compoundable. What does it mean? File a complaint to the police station for sexual harassment, what will happen? Cognizable means what? Hello, are you there?
Cognizable means police can take action its own by recognizing.
Yeah, they will file an FIR. They will file an FIR. Yeah. And arrest can take without warrant. Cognizable offense means that. But it immediately is bailable also. So you file a complaint, the person will be arrested and then released on bail because of bailable offense. Bail. And you cannot make any compromise on that. It's a non-compoundable matter. In Sexual Harassment Act, what happens?
Ma'am, there is a provision for conciliation under Sexual Harassment Act, and also it
But it
is
says that no monetary conciliation can happen. So like it mentioned that no monetary, but on the other hand, it also mentioned that there is a penalty of 50,000 rupees.
For what?
In the later provision, it says some. So like if there is a repeat offender of some sort, so there has to be some amount to be given to that person, the victim.
In the legislation.
It mentions the amount later so about the repeat offenders. But on the ordinary when conciliation it talks about, so it particularly mentioned that no monetary uh, settlement can be taken
can take
place.
place.
Yeah, monetary
Hmm.
settlement cannot take place, but there's a penalty part. So when it says
Yes,
conciliation can take place, but no
no monetary.
no monetary. So what is the form that a conciliation can take? What do you think has to be the mechanism to ensure this?
So, ma'am, there can be some guidelines within the workplace in which the employer would ensure the aggrieved woman that no such acts would take place in the future.
Okay. And how do you think? Because what I'm actually wanting to focus on is that does the law provide for any mechanism for doing it? Remember, we had a discussion earlier, which said when we were talking about that legislation can be symbolic or it can be instrumental. So what we do have under the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Prevention, Prohibition, and Redressal Act is that you have to have an ICC. The detailed provisions are given there for saying how to constitute, who will be the members and all that. But when it comes to the conciliation provision, is there any mechanism laid down in the legislation itself?
No.
No,
Conciliation.
there is no. No,
So
there is
whether the
nothing.
provision in conciliation is said to be symbolic or does it really instrumental? Because that's what we say, no? That unless you create mechanisms for it, there will be no conciliation. Because money to certainly is not to be the part of that conversation. If money is not the
Right.
part of the conversation, then there have to be mediators, counselors who can bring the two parties together. What we call as restorative justice. So unless that is happening, it is only a symbolic category there that yeah, parties can reconcile. What we do, I mean, what I can share with you is that there was one student who was complaining of one of our law students in the central library. And she wanted action. She had reported to her department. She was from a different department, and I was dealing at that point of time. So she came and saying the student is ours, and we were able to trace the student. And what she ultimately wanted was the harassment to stop. She was not interested in punishment of the student, but she wanted the harassment to stop. And because we were able to get through the student, we were able to talk to that person, and he did agree, and he certainly believed that he was not harassing, and there was a miscommunication. So the thing got sorted out. She didn't want to follow a punitive procedure as such. So that made those kind of cases, but this was not a case where she had filed a complaint, which has gone to the ICC, and then the ICC did conciliation. Because this is a very informal category of experience that I'm sharing. And that is not what the legislation is about. The legislation is about saying that after she had filed a complaint, instead of going for a punitive measure, there might be a possibility of reconciliation, which is not a bad thing at all in the university setup. Because young students are there, their whole life may be at stake if things go wrong and negative strictures are passed and all. So there must be a mechanism, but in the legislation itself, and this is not limited to only university. I'm talking from the perspective of the university. So in the university UGC guidelines, if conciliation would have been more centralized, maybe it would have been better, but we do not find it there. So, okay, coming back to the PPT that I was looking at, we also have, so what do you think? I've still not heard your views on whether victim under IPC can be people other than men, other than women. What do you think?
Ma'am,
The intention of the legislature must have been this only, that the victim should be a woman.
But it is not written. It is
But
not
if it
written
had
as a
been
lawyer.
so,
No,
they
as a
have
lawyer.
not
As a
specifically mentioned.
lawyer. Why would you want to restrict when it is not written?
So we
When
can
we,
go for purposive interpretation of this particular section, that we can include other genders also.
what is the, because IPC is not said no, against women. This language cannot be, because when we say IPC, IPC is generic, and the section is not part of saying, okay, this is offenses against women. This is not like that category. It just says sexual harassment and punishment for sexual harassment, and does not say who the offenders are. And whether all the other sections which were introduced in that at that point of time, 354 certainly assault, sexual assault against women. 354B with intent to outrage women's morality. 54 voyeurism, woman. So one way to look at it will be that all stalking anyone who follows a woman. When you look at the
Ma'am,
all,
but section 509 specifically talks about women
that's
of
true.
IPC.
No. When you look at this whole set of offenses which were introduced in 2013, the new set of offenses,
Okay.
all of them have man as the offender and woman as the victim, excepting 354, which is little tricky. So as a lawyer, how would you want to use it to expand the scope of the sections? Because one may be
So,
to
ma'am,
take a technical position that no, all the offenses were against women, clause 3 is also women. So there's no logical reason why the other should be inclusive of the others. That may be one way to look at
can
it.
we say that all other sections have specifically used this word woman,
Hmm.
but this particular section, except for the second clause, has not used the word woman anywhere? So we can interpret that this is for other genders also. The victim can be from any other gender also.
Yeah, but how do we then explain 3, which does use the word woman? So why is it that the legislature wanted to do it in clause 3, but not in 1, 2, 4? What would be a logical explanation? Because if it, suppose I'm kind of thinking of Justice Sikri's judgment in Richa, what was that name? Richa Mishra, where it
Richa
says,
Mishra.
Mishra.
so in that one, he said, don't look at all the adjoining legislation before and after. And he said, even though it is missing here, I will read it in the one in the 2000, for the 2000 appointment as well. So anything on those lines, can we think of that? How do we expand the scope, or do we need to expand? Should we try to expand the scope, or should we just say, okay, illogical it may be, but this is how the law has been made. So 3 clauses open, the victim can be anybody, but in 3rd, it will be only a woman. So there's no logic to exclude other persons in 3 if we say 1, 2, and 4 are inclusive of everyone as a victim. I'm going to leave you with this thought. Think it through till tomorrow, and we'll do some more queries on this question. And I'll have some more quiz to do tomorrow, which we will do after having looked at the various sections that we'll be looking at. Also, sexual harassment. Okay, so well, I'll give you some examples and we'll try to find out. First, we'll have a very quick look at the scheme of the legislation tomorrow, and then we'll have a quiz on saying what do you think, whether the offense has been made or not, or what is the situation, etc. So we'll have a quiz also tomorrow. But I would want you to think about this question that I'm posing in relation to the language of the IPC, which is very categorically only one clause has woman, the other 3 clauses do not have the word woman there. And how do we understand this section? Okay.
okay, ma'am.
Anyone has a question,
Yes, ma'am.
observation, comment?
Ma'am, I have one question.
Yes, Rahul.
This is Rahul.
I could.
Ma'am, mm, thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, when we read the Prevention of Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Act, and
Mm.
particularly move to Section 4 and Section 7,
Mhm.
the Section 4 says that it makes compulsory that at least 2 members among the ICC who are required to deal with sexual harassment cases in workplace must be committed to the cause of women. And then
Yeah.
we go forward with Section 7. It says the local committee, which is constituted under the said act, the members should be chaired among eminent women from the field of social work and committed to the cause of women.
Mm.
So, if we read this together, and there is a thought that if the members of the committee of the adjudicatory committee are to be committed to an ideology or a thought process or a mental frame that will be such that it can give an opportunity for an unwelcome bias in their findings, and there
Mhm.
will be a resonance of their personal commitments in it too.
Yeah.
So, and can it be termed as unconstitutional because once an adjudicatory body is determined to be as slanted in its way, uh, it destroys the fairness concept embedded in the education theory itself?
I have a true responses to
I
that.
have a point to make.
Yes.
Ma'am, it is clearly written that at least one half of the body would be women, like women members would be there.
Members.
So the other half can be men also. So why would there be a bias?
It may be 100% women also. There's no ban that
Yes.
100% committee cannot be women. I've got Rahul, two responses. One is this whole question, the very question we have been doing since the very beginning of our course, that whether just because somebody is a female, does it mean she is a woman? What we are assuming here is a collapse of sex and gender. The moment we say presiding officer shall be a woman, 50% of them will be a woman. So we are saying that everybody, every female automatically has the qualities of a woman. But we do know that a lot of females want to be like men. So it may actually
Yes,
be the
ma'am.
other way around, that you might have a woman heading the committee, but who is a very, very man-minded, or the other way around as well. But the second observation on your constitutionality point is that 15.3, will that come into operation? The legislation is gendered. The legislation is not gender neutral. So if the legislation itself is not challenged being sexist or being discriminatory, do you think our objection to the presiding officer or the members being women will be possible to uphold?
Ma'am, I agree with you. Particularly, I was looking at Section 7, which says eminent woman from the
Hmm?
field of social work and committed to the cause of women. So
Hmm.
it already thinks that it will only be women who will be committed to the cause of women. There cannot be a man who can be committed to the cause of women or any other default. So there's a default set which gives an opportunity. I'm not claiming it, but gives an opportunity for an unwelcome bias. And their personal
When you
commitments and
say
belief will
when we
have the
talk about
resonance on the finding.
when we talk about cause of women, it is not necessarily that she is, no, by fact that she has a background of working in the area of the women's issues, that she will be favoring every single woman she comes across. That's an assumption. What we're saying is that she will understand the limitations of being a woman. Because when we talk about why we're talking about causes of women, it's because of the women not having a voice. Even when they feel aggrieved, they are harassed, they are beaten up, there's a lot of violence committed against them, they remain silent. And even when they do decide to do something, the society silences them. The institutions, which are usually manned by men, silence them because they do not empathize with their cause. So the same fear, not fear, the reality has been that women went to the police station and to file a complaint and they ended up being raped. They ended up being silenced. They ended up being told by the policemen that thoda bahut maar pitai ghar mein hona is normal, and you do not want to destroy your family. The paternalistic approach was also there. So, and recognizing that this is what was happening, the women police station or the special cells for women subjected to domestic violence were created. Special laws have been made because the experience has been that women's voices are not heard. They're not supposed to be spoken also. So it is to meet that reality of the women's issues, which has prompted the legislation to say women heading. Same way we have a women commission headed by a woman, the SCST commission headed by the person from the community. So if we have the doubt here, we would have doubt with every committee, every commission, which is meant to look into the issues of the specific group of the marginalized population. Will that not be true?
Understood, ma'am. Thank you.
Because the bias can come. For me, my basic objection is this whole assumption that there's no distinction in the manner in which we have been making legislation, the distinction between sex and gender. So technically, we keep on saying there's a difference, that's true. But we all assume that if a person has a particular sex, the gender of the person will be the same also. We do not believe that men can have the same empathy and women may have the same opposition to the women's issue. We will
Understood.
continue with this conversation tomorrow. And I'm glad that you wanted this doubt, brought this doubt to the fore. And it's important to clarify such doubts, that unless we talk about it, that what may be. And I think the point which the other student made, I'm forgetting the name.
Astha.
This was,
I think Astha made that point.
Asta, yeah. Asta made the point that it's 50%. And till date, even the university setup, we do have representatives of all the groups involved. So we have the non-teaching staff member, we have the women as the head, we have the student members as well. And therefore, the committees do try to meet that bias issue, that their voices of every group have to be heard. But because usually women do not complain, because they're shy from making such information, and because it also leads to their confinement. No, I know that girl students in our faculty, when they're subjected to sexual harassment, they don't tell their families because the family's response will make it ghar wapis aa jao. They don't want to do that.
Ma'am, and I would like to add that it is often excused as natural male behavior or harmless flirtation, which women enjoy.
Yeah,
That
but that
they
we
are
said no,
harmless
this is
to
not.
No,
Harmless is
that's
only when women do enjoy. So if you are friends
yeah,
with
that is
somebody and teasing them, that's a different thing altogether. When they're
that is the
making,
excuse they make. That is the excuse they make if someone complains about that. It is just a flirtatious. So they're just a male behavior. So it's very natural. So they just try to silence that person, the victim, so to say. That is very natural.
yeah, it is kind of, it has been mentioned as natural. And for me,
Yeah.
this whole concept that whenever there are two people involved, something which may be natural, quote unquote, to a person, it becomes unnatural if it is not welcomed by the other person. You are not doing it in the
Definitely.
abstract. If you are addressing another person, that person's understanding of what is natural and what is welcome is as much important as your own perception of what is normal and natural. And then in the video, they were saying that a reasonable person. So again, we are back to this whole question of how do we construe the reasonable person? Not what we call as the male behavior as normal, but whether the normal women found that offensive, it should be the reasonable person's behavior. Because it is the recipient who has to decide whether it's offensive or not. I know we're
Ma'am,
running
will
out
we
of time.
also just one last question, ma'am, which is
Yes,
a
sir.
very small question. Will we also learn about the differences between ICC and GS Cash? Because in a university system, that maybe will we be also exploring that
What one? Which ones?
differences between ICC model and GS Cash, gender sensitization and against sexual harassment?
No, the committees are, the GSCs are different than ICC. We will look at their functions as to what the two are supposed to do. So tomorrow,
Thank you, ma'am.
okay.
Okay, ma'am.